for more on those two stories, those latest shootings in Gaza and those sanctions on Israeli ministers, let's speak to Yaakov Katz, Senior Fellow at the Jewish People Policy Institute and former Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post. Thank you for joining us on BBC News. I just want to start with the breaking news that's coming in of Gaza. More reportings of shootings, killings, they say, by the Israeli military on civilians trying to access aid distribution sites that are backed by the Israeli government. We've seen numerous shootings like this happen over the last 2 weeks or so that this aid mechanism has been put in place. How are they viewed in Israel? Are there conversations as to whether this form of aid distribution can go on?
There are definitely conversations, Catherine, about what is happening at these aid distribution centers. And of course, I don't think anyone wants to be opening fire unless you are Hamas at the civilians who are trying to come and get aid. The whole purpose here was to establish these distribution centers to be able to bypass Hamas, the terrorist group that had been hijacking the aid, and to get the aid directly to the people who need it. That was the purpose behind this, and the establishment of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is running at several millions and millions of food packages and meals have already been distributed to the people of Gaza. But we have to wait to hear from the IDF, the Israel military, what exactly happened in each of these incidents. We know that Hamas and the Palestinian Health Ministry, ruled by Hamas, has lied and falsified information in the past, but it's no surprise if Hamas itself wants to shoot at the people to prevent them from getting the aid.
A point on that, Mr. Katz, because of course we hear from eyewitnesses on the grounds, trusted journalists who do tell us that it is the Israeli military that's shooting against civilians there. And we can see the chaotic scenes when people are going in to pick up aid. And this really does lead credence to the criticism that Israel is weaponizing aid distribution in Gaza.
I don't think Israel's weaponizing aid distribution in Gaza. I think what Israel's trying to do is what any country would do, is bypass that terrorist group that had been hijacking the aid, had been using it to perpetuate its continued rule over Gaza and its continued existence. It's in everyone's interest, Catherine. Israel definitely, but I would say even the people of Gaza, to break free of the rule of Hamas. As to the trusted journalists on the ground in Gaza, I'm not sure that we can trust what we're hearing out of this war zone, unfortunately. Look, there's a tragedy in Gaza, and we can't ignore it. And of course, no one wants to deny it. But the real way to break free of it is to be able to remove Hamas from power and find a way for the people who need the aid to get that aid. And I think that's what's really at the core here. So it's not about weaponizing. It's about really getting what's needed to the people who need it.
And let's look at the sanctions introduced by the UK and others on two senior Israeli politicians, far-right politicians. It's important to say that these sanctions are related to what's happening in the West Bank and not necessarily what's happening in Gaza. Can these sanctions actually impact Israeli government policy? Israel has already condemned them. Will it change the way it operates in the West Bank?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change necessarily anything dramatic. What we have to keep in mind is while the British government and Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Norway all said that this has to do with the West Bank, it doesn't have to do with the West Bank. This has to do with shooting across the bow and making a message clear to Israel that these countries, and particularly the United Kingdom, are not happy with what's happening on the ground in Gaza, are not happy with Israel's policies. And I think it's unfortunately a shameful decision. It shows a misunderstanding of what's happening here. This was a war that was forced upon Israel, a war that Hamas started by invading and massacring 1,200 people and kidnapping another 251. Hostages still being held in Gaza. And as far right as these ministers might be, allies do not sanction allies, Catherine. I think that's the message that we should keep in mind. This is not something you do to a friendly country, a country that you claim as your ally at a time when it is in its hour of need, at a time that it is still fighting a war against a barbaric terrorist organization.
Of course, there are differing views as to the history of the conflict, but Yaakov Katz, former editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post, thank you for joining us on BBC News. Now, let's